I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yeah, hi everybody. Ron from The Truth About Addiction. Welcome. Today we have my special guest. This is for me, this one. This is my friend and my mentor, Mario. Welcome to The Truth About Addiction, Mario. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, Ron. It's a pleasure.
So, Mario, tell us the story about Mario's, I guess, what you used to be like, what happened, and what you're like today. In a lot of ways, I guess it'd be like that. And, I've known you for 40 years. So, you're a pretty old guy. You've been around a long time doing this recovery stuff. So, yeah. Fill us in what you've done in your lifestyle, please, mate.
Well, thanks for reminding me how old I am, Ron. But
that's all right, my pleasure.
I did look, in a really brief sort of synopsis. I was born and raised in Bondi in Sydney, and it was a beachside suburb. I have Italian heritage, and even though my family wasn't very Italian, I never really felt I fitted in the beach culture. And when my first drug came along, marijuana, I saw it as a way of acceptance into a group of cool people. And I was a young high school kid, and when I smoked, even from the first time, it was like the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle fell into place. And it was like, where has this been all my life? And, I was immediately, psychologically hooked. I had a meteoric sort of rise through my addiction. I quickly learnt that to get the drugs I wanted, I had to sell drugs. And so at a really young age, I was dealing. And by the time I was leaving high school, I was using harder and harder drugs, and I found heroin, and it really took me into another stratosphere of the need for the drug, what I needed to do for the drug, and where it took me and the people I mixed with. By the age of 22, I'd had several detoxes. I'd been arrested several times for possession and use, and at the beginning in 1978, I was arrested and charged for supplying heroin. I spent some time in Long Bay Remand Centre, detoxed in the centre, cold turkey, and got released and said to myself, I'm not going to use anymore. And within 3 hours of getting bail, I had a needle in my arm, and I was on the road again. And so it just proved to myself that, I had no willpower left. I thought it was all about willpower, but knowing addiction now, it's a lot more than willpower. I had tremendous willpower to use drugs. I could do superhuman feats. I could do things against my upbringing. I could do things to other people that I would be shameful about, and have some sort of deep remorse, but still the need overpowered all of that. And also I learned at the end of my using, like in the beginning, those feelings were dissolvable in the bottom of a spoon, and by the end they would no longer dissolve. And so I went into a long-term rehab, and there were 2 times of the day that were the worst times of the day. In the morning, when I had to look at myself in the mirror and brush my teeth or have a shave, I didn't like what I saw. I had great contempt for myself. And then they would come around during the day and ask me how I felt, and I was so frustrated by that question because I really had no idea. Yeah. I thought I only had 4 emotions, hungry, horny, angry or tired. And I was just always angry. And that's how I always was after a detox anyway, angry. And so I had this great rage within me, and it would only be quelled by using again. And so, that was my road to recovery this time. Because I was on bail for supply, I was looking at serious jail time, and I pretty much stayed in the rehab, for 20 months. And it was 6 months in there before the compulsion to use left me. And that was a great gift, actually. So I think from there, I discovered 12-step fellowships, and I went on and went, progressed my recovery that way. I think one thing that was the hardest, every time I'd leave detox, would be that compulsion to use would burn me up inside, and within hours I'd find drugs. And it wouldn't matter where I was, if I flew to New Zealand once and went to a nightclub, and within 10 minutes of being in the nightclub, I found the addicts and I found the heroin, and I was stoned again. So, I will always probably seek the company of other addicts, because I have the only empathy I had was with them. And these days I choose to seek the company of addicts that don't use, and I find great empathy with them. And I'll just close on this, as I said, I've always been drawn towards other addicts, and I was travelling around the world a few years ago, and I was in Rome, and I had an address for an NA meeting, and it was in a pretty dodgy part of Rome, and I got in a cab and gave him the address, and he stopped, and I can't really speak Italian, but he was trying to tell me where I want to go is down these stairs into this really dark area, and he couldn't drive down there. So I got out of the cab and I started to walk, and I was just thinking, where the hell am I going? And I saw this young man and woman walk past me and go down the stairs, and I went, they're addicts. And I followed them, and I followed them into the meeting, So we've just got an inbuilt radar.
Yeah, cool. The story when I was in Singapore 35 years ago, and I was going to drink. I'd just come back from Sri Lanka, and the taxi driver couldn't find the address I'd given him, and I was in panic mode. I was in full. I started to get into a compulsion. I was already in obsession, but I was starting to get into a bit of a compulsion. And I said to him, just stop the car. And I got out of the car on this side street in the middle of Singapore, and I got out of the car, and I look up, and there's this big white guy, not a Singaporean, and he turns and he goes, hey, man, are you looking for a meeting? He's a big Yankee guy. I'm like, yeah. He goes, you look fucked, man. Welcome. And he takes me inside, and there's only 4 people there, and they're all Yanks. He goes, you look like shit, motherfucker. He said, I think you should be the opening speaker. And I didn't use. That was the only time I felt like using in my 36 years of being clean. It's the only time I felt like using. I honestly really started to feel like I'd lost the strength to stay clean. I was actually in fear, and I was starting to get into this incredible panic mode of, oh my God, if I don't stop the way I'm thinking, the way I'm feeling, I'm going to put a chemical in my body to try to change the way I feel. Yeah, and it was just so crazy. Like, the guy couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak the Singaporean. He couldn't tell me where I was. He couldn't find the address. And it was like a divine intervention. Like, stop right now. And he stopped, and I got out of the car, and this guy looked at me. I was like, wow, how freaky is that? And it's just like, I've had a few of those stories, in my lifetime. I'm sure you've had many too, from being all around the world and, having people. I have another quick story. I was walking through San Francisco another day that I was in one of my mental obsessive compulsive disorders, and I asked these young girls, oh, where's such and such? And they looked at me, and I wear a medallion around my neck, a recovery medallion. And they didn't say anything to me. They go, oh, yeah, we'll walk with you. We'll show you down the road here. I mean, we walked for miles, and then they turned around and they started laughing and said, oh, we've seen your medallion. We just wanted to hang out. It's just like, it's really weird. It was like, oh, wow, how cool is this, But what I'd like to talk to you about, mate, is the obsession and the compulsion of this thing that we call addiction. You know, what your idea of what obsession is. You know, how we get it into our brain. You know, and how it lies to us and tells us that. You know, I call it the pedophile because my disease has been doing bad things to me since I was a little kid. You know, so I've called my disease the pedophile, and that way it helped me not listen to it. Because when it tries to talk to me, why would I listen to a pedophile? You know, that's how I've dealt with my obsessive compulsive nature. So, I'd love to hear your take on it, brother.
Yeah, well, as I said, from my first smoke of marijuana, it gave me something that I thought I was missing, and probably I did. I think I have an underlying anxiety, and the way I used to explain it is that I always felt that I was in the wrong place. I had to be somewhere else, and I'm late. It was just that feeling that I have to be, and so I couldn't really be comfortable where I was, or even comfortable in my own life. And so, at first, drugs soothe that anxiety, and for a long time it worked, but after a while it begins to wear off, and so I needed more and more drugs until in the end nothing quenched that anxiety. And I thought it was a lot. I could have blamed my lifestyle. I'd become paranoid. I had good reason to be paranoid, but I was paranoid. Like, I lived in this. I had a terrace house in Paddington, and but I was living in. I nailed all the windows shut. I had a guard dog. I had weapons hidden around the house, and drugs secreted everywhere, and money. I had a car round the block, round one block, and one round another block with the keys hidden, with money and drugs and weapons hidden in them in case I had to make a quick escape from my house. I used to even put my laundry in the laundromat under a false name.
Trying to come clean.
Yeah. I was very paranoid. And and sometimes I'd forget what name the laundry was in, or what laundry it was at, so I'd just go out and buy all new clothes, and new linen and everything, and it was just insane. But that was the obsession, and it was just eating at my very soul. And without the drugs, it was worse. It was worse, and I would feel like I was going totally insane. And unfortunately, the only treatment for that is to stay abstinent, because at some point, I learned to live with that abstinence and with that panic. And in the end, without any drugs in my system, I would have panic attacks, which I didn't even know what they were. And I can only explain it like this: rush of blood would start in my feet and course up through my body until I was hyperventilating. And once again, I just learned after a little while not to panic and sit with it. And then as they began to happen, I would say to myself, I know what this is, and I know it'll pass. And it would. And they became less and less severe and less frequent, and I don't have them today. But the trick is, really, for me, abstinence. I had to learn the things, had to be an adolescent at first. And I had a lot to learn about life, and I'm still learning. To me, it's the negative spirit that lives inside the chemicals, and that negative spirit triggers me. And even today, if I'm, occasionally I've needed to take painkillers and things like that, and as soon as I have them, it flicks a little switch in my brain and gives me that feeling again, and I go, oh yeah, I know that feeling. And I've got to be aware of that, that I'm really only one drug, reigniting the flame.
Yeah. I try to explain to people sometimes, and a lot of people don't know what the hell I'm talking about because I'm so old. When I was a kid, you grew up with a gas heater in the bathroom that had a little pilot light in it. And then you'd flick the switch, you'd turn the gas in and it'd start the gas heater. Well, I have that pilot light inside me, and I call that the disease. It never goes out, it just burns. But if the minute I put a chemical in my body, it's turned the heater on. And it doesn't stop until it's burnt all the fluids. All the fuel's got to be burnt, which is my relationships, my house, my financial stuff, my spiritual stuff, my physical stuff has all got to be burnt out. Then the flame will go back down to the little pilot light. And then what used to happen to me, then I'd get arrested and I'd go to jail and I'd detox. And then the flame would come back, the little flame would be there and it'd be nice and it'd be manageable. It's still there. It was still uncomfortable. And I could still feel the burning. And, like you said before, I'd be in jail and I'd train and I'd be like, I'm not going to use this time. I'm going to get out this time. I'm going to be the successful criminal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and all the bullshit. And the first day out, the reality of life was so harsh on me that I had to have a shot to get through that day. Or else I'd bullshit myself and say, you deserve it, just one. And the minute I put that one in, the light would get the petrol tipped on top of it. It would burn itself out, and I would end up back in detox, whether it was 6 weeks or 6 months. It was back into a prison. I'd never detoxed in a rehab until after I'd been in recovery. All my detoxes were in prisons. I didn't even know there was such a thing as addiction when I started using. I started shooting heroin in 1974. You were probably doing it before then, because you're a lot older than me. Actually, you're not. You're younger than me, you bastard.
Yeah.
So what year did you start shooting up, Mario?
Actually 73. So, just last year of high school, started smoking heroin. And then obviously, you look at more, efficient ways to get it into your blood. Yeah.
Exactly. I shot up for my first shot of heroin. My first heroin was an injection. I'd injected other drugs in prison, which was that filthy rotten Largactil, which the corrective services put me on because I was uncontrollable at 7 stone. And, a little boy, they put me on that drug. And but I wasn't addicted to it. It's really funny, isn't it? I wasn't really addicted to it. Well, I didn't know I was. And then I left prison and I drank straight away. And I drank alcoholically. Alcohol to me was really horrible. I actually think heroin was more manageable than alcohol. Because alcohol, I went into blackout.
Well, same for me. I didn't like the feeling of losing control with the alcohol, but with the heroin or most of those other drugs, I just felt like I had some sort of control. When looking now as an illusion, because really it was just wide-ending everything that I had and everything that I was. Just a different burn.
Yeah, people talk about a drug problem. The only problem I had was when it ran out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the madness would begin. That's why when I got into recovery, that's when the shit hit the fan. That's when it got really scary.
Yeah, well, I know for me, the drugs kept the lid on a lot of me emotionally,
Yeah.
And so without them, it was like the lid was blowing off and the pot was boiling over. And it just took a long time for that to settle down.
Yeah, people don't understand when I say to them, they look at me really weird and I say heroin saved my life and it saved a lot of other people's lives. Because before I took heroin, I was incredibly... I have real trouble with the word violent, and yet I was shooting people. To me, that's not violent. I see someone jumping on somebody's head, I think it's more violent when I see that act, because, shooting people is such an unemotional thing. It's like putting your finger on something going like that.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no emotion, there's no connection, it's like kids on these video games these days. That just scares me about all these mass murderers. They play these stupid video games of shooting people, then they go out and do it and live stream it.
Yeah.
And addiction was like that for me.
Yeah. And a while, a couple of decades ago, the army used to train soldiers with games like that to desensitize them to killing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now we're allowing our 12-year-olds to play these games and become totally desensitized.
I have a 7-year-old who's the genius sniper.
Yeah.
I've taught him to shoot, and I've taught him to shoot a bow and arrow and all that stuff. And but at least with him, he's getting education that these are weapons, these aren't toys. That these things actually cause harm. They're not, what you see on the screen isn't reality.
Yeah.
He's been with me, we hunt and fish and all that stuff. And I explained to him this is taking something's life. And we only take something's life to eat.
Yeah.
Once you have your quota to eat, you stop taking the life, And I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but that's just the way it is with me, where I was taught you just shoot people because you don't like them or somebody else doesn't like them or, it was just that crazy, crazy stuff. But, to me, I've always been super detached. And I found for recovery to me was connection and attachment. Attachment to oneself and connection with oneself. My morals, my conscience, my spiritual principles that I've learnt basically through you and the program that you've taught me, it's made me into a human being, not a human taking. Because I was a human taking. I was never a human being until I met you, until I started doing a program with you. That's reality. And even though I'd been around for 5 years, around fellowships and programs and 12-step programs and rehabs, I still hadn't worked anything. So it wasn't a matter of taking the drugs out of my life. It was re-educating me and reprogramming my thinking. Because my thinking is the problem, not the drugs.
Yeah. I think, the thing I had to learn, and I now call it a gift, was to learn empathy for other human beings.
Yeah.
And, I'll give you an example. When I was using, towards the end, I shared a house with two girls at Vaucluse, and it had a really steep driveway that ended in a stone retaining wall, and my car had a crook battery, so I used to park it at the top of the driveway, and then I'd jump in it and roll it down the driveway and clutch start it, then hit the brake before I hit the wall, and then put in reverse and screech out of the. Anyway, one of the girls that we shared the house with used to overdose all the time, and I used to just think she was a pig, and I gave her mouth to mouth so many times to get her back alive. Anyway, one day I saw her mixing up. I thought, I'm going out. I'm just over this. And so I jumped in the car, rolled it down the driveway. It didn't start. So I run inside and I say to the girls, come on, you got to help me push the car back up the driveway. And so they're pushing it, and I'm watching this one girl, and her lips are going blue and her eyes are rolling in her head as she's pushing on the bonnet, and then she just collapses. And so I put the handbrake on, and I go, oh, shit. And I look around, and there's no one looking, so I just drag her out of the road. I roll the car down and start it. I reverse up the driveway, and I stop and I see the neighbour looking. And that's the only reason I went back and dragged her inside and got her back breathing again. It was like, I didn't give a damn,
Yeah.
And so, and today, I'm not like that. And it's really important for me. Like, even I still have the remnants of that rage inside of me. And I might be driving along, and someone will be weaving in and out of that traffic and driving really recklessly and being, a bit of a dickhead to my mind. And I get really angry, and I go, I'm going to stick this car right up his back bumper bar, and I might put my foot on the accelerator or cut him off or something. But now, it's most of the time, I'll stop and think, well, I don't know that guy. I don't know maybe he's in a hurry to go to the hospital. Maybe he's, his kid's had an accident. I don't know just reach for empathy rather than anger. And even when my wife wants to tell me something, and my first reaction is defensiveness and anger. And I go, well, hang on, she's upset about something. And so I need to take a breath and say, I can see you're upset. Like, let's talk about, what this is. And it gives me a happier life, It gives me a more spiritual, happy life. And, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, being less self-absorbed. Like my mate Greg James, the tattooist in Los Angeles, he's got that sign on his door I always talk about, people who are wrapped up in themselves make small parcels. I love it, and he's tattooed Charlie Sheen and Roseanne and David Carradine, the whole of the Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne. They all pass that sign and go like, oh, that's a great sign. They don't even get it, It's like they just don't get it, and it's true. When I was wrapped up in myself, I was such a small parcel, Mate, did you travel before you got clean? Did you travel overseas or anything?
Well, not a lot. Like, I work for an airline company.
Yeah, I know that.
So I used to had a lot of Kiwi friends, so I'd go to New Zealand a lot for holidays, and I think I went to Thailand once, but that Thailand trip I don't remember.
Yeah, right. Active addiction. So you got clean what year?
1979.
79. And then you got arrested.
Yeah, so about 1982, I was arrested by the investigators from the Stewart Royal Commission, and I was told that the Royal Commission were looking for results, and I was going to be one of them.
So it was horrifying to be,
it was like walking along the street. It was like walking along the street and falling down an open manhole, and it was a bit of a shock. I had an inkling that this stuff would catch up with me. They wanted to know about drug importations in 1978, and actually when I was in long-term rehab, I remember seeing the Sunday paper one day, and it was a news splash about this certain gang, and there was photos of 6 or 7 murdered people on the front page, and I knew them all, and I knew what it was about, and then after I'd left rehab, I ran into actually one of the girls I lived in Vaucluse with, and she'd gone back to New Zealand, but she was in Australia, and she just started crying and hugged me, and she said, "Oh, weird things are happening," and I didn't take the hint, that she was over here to give evidence for the Royal Commission. So it was a big shock, and
yeah, right.
It was a.
Did you think about using?
No, not once.
That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, not once. I was in more trouble than I'd been in my whole life, and was sort of I didn't even consider it, really.
Yeah, cool. That's magic, isn't it? That's divine intervention somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And the outcome, you never went back to jail.
Well, that was divine intervention too. Like, the guy, I can say this now because he's passed away, but he was the Queen's Counsel. He was the lead prosecutor on the case, and he reached out to me through another judge that was sort of in the a 12-step program, who told him about me, and he reached out, and he, through my then wife, said that I've heard about Mario and the good things that he's done, in the 12-step fellowship that he's in, and the people he's helped, and I think he deserves a break. And so he just wanted me to be honest with him, and which I was, and he just said, this one clincher to my wife. He said, he might be in the hands of God, but he's in my hands at the moment too. And I realised like he was fair income, and so I just trusted him, and I made legal history in Australia by getting a good behaviour bond.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Beautiful. I love that story. I know that story. That's why I asked you it.
yeah,
Because for anyone listening, that if you stop using, good things happen.
Well, more than that, I prayed for 2 years, and at first, I just prayed to be shown what I should do, what I should do, because I had choices about how I'd, seek to defend myself, and then my wife became pregnant, and I thought, wow, this child's going to be finishing high school by the time I get out of jail, and I said the prayer changed to God, if there's any way I can't go to jail, or I don't really want to go to jail. If I have to, I'm going to do it. No worries. Jail didn't worry me, but not being there with my family, that's what worried me. And so that was the prayer. And I'll just say this too about prayer and God. Like, I'm not religious at all, and in my 12-step program, we talk about seeking a higher power and seeking and understanding that higher power. The longer I've stayed clean, the less I understand that higher power.
Me too.
But the less important it is, and I often say this, like about what I know about the existence of it, nothing, but I like the cosmos and astrology, and and they talk about dark matter in space, and it's something that you can't see, They only know it exists by the effect it has on things you can see, for a start. So there you go. But also, how does it work? I don't know. But I go down to Woolworths and I do all my shopping. I fill the cart up with food. I take it to the checkout. Then they go, it's X dollars, and do you want cash out? I go, money too, and food, And I give them my card. I don't know how that works. Does it matter? I don't care. It works. I just give them my card. I've got food for the week and cash if I need it. It's simple.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I guess the thing with you and I is most of the stuff I'm going to say is stuff that you've taught me. So my understandings and it's the same as the people I look after. They pass the same message on to the people they look after, and they pass the message on to the people they look after. And that's what I love about our recovery, that we have this incredible gift to keep keeping on. I remember when I was a kid, there used to be a sign, keep on trucking, with the back on the back of cars and trucks, and with a big foot up in the air, And that's what we're doing. We're just keeping on trucking, and we don't get paid to help people. We don't get, all this incredible, recognition and all that stuff. But what we get is this peace within. I love the fact that, recovery is an inside job.
Mm.
I always wanted to do the inside jobs. Because you had the information of where the money was going to be and who was armed, and so I was always into the inside job, because we had a little bit of a edge, same as when I punted. If I knew that the jockeys were pulling the other horses up, I'd get me money on. If I knew the dog was full of cocaine, I'd get me money on. So because the inside job always put the advantage in our favour, and it's the same as the recovery.
Yeah.
Today, the disease hasn't got its control over me like it used to have. Because before, if my head said, fucking punch that person, I punched it. If it said have sex with that person, I had sex with it. If it said steal that, I stole it. It was just so controlling that I never questioned my thinking. And yet my thinking was my enemy.
Yeah.
My thinking was where the disease lived. And I believe recovery is where my heart, it lives in my heart. In my heart and my soul.
Yeah. And I think too, what I've come to realise is that what gives my life meaning is my relationships with other people. It's relationships. It's not possessions. It's not seeking within me to have a chemical to change the way I feel. It's relationships, and so they're important. And as I said about looking in the newspaper and seeing those people dead, and A couple of them I hung out with a lot, and they were friends, but I had no emotion about knowing they were dead. None at all. And probably my only emotion was, shit, what's going to happen next, about me. So I only thought about me.
Exactly. I hope I don't get caught.
But now I go like, a good friend of mine passed away suddenly a couple of weeks ago, and I was really upset about that,
Yeah.
and for her family, and because that was a person that I got clean with, in that long-term rehab. So I've known her for 43 years. They're long-term relationships like mine with you, Ron.
Yeah.
And they're important to me. My relationship with my wife and my children, my grandchildren, they give my life meaning, And so when I was a using addict, I had none of that. It was just a desert. And it says in the literature of our program, it reduces us to the lowest common denominator of animal instinct, and that's
Yep.
what it was.
I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
'Cause to me, you're talking about that girl before, and I remember blokes IDing in my house and me abusing whoever brought them there. What the fuck are you doing bringing this grub to mine? Put him in the back of your car and drop the fucking thing. I don't care where you drop. Drop him at the park, drop him at the hospital. I don't care. Get it out of my house because you're going to bring the coppers to my joint. But that's sad.
It really is.
But if I see someone on the side of the road fitting or in something, I'd give him mouth to mouth and I'd try to give him, CPR, and I'd wait for the ambulance to come there. Before, I'd be going through his pockets to see if he had anything in his pocket,
Well,
that's the truth. That's the miracle of our program.
Yeah.
That's the miracle of being clean.
I don't go around looking for people that help. But they come across. I come across it. Like one day I pulled up in a shopping centre in a car park, and I stopped the engine. Then I could hear some guy raging out. And he was a couple of cars over, and there was a young woman in the car, and he's jumped out of the car and he slammed the door, and then he's thumping his fists on the windows. And I'm going, oh shit, So I go over and really, I don't want to be involved, but it looked pretty bad, And I went over and I tapped on the girl's window, and she went down. I said, "Are you okay?" And she's crying, and she said, "Yeah." And this guy's looking at me like bridging up, and I didn't even pay him any attention. And I said, "Look, I'm going to be sitting in my car there," and I said, "If you wave to me, I'm calling the police, because I'm not a copper." And my first instinct was I was just going to smack this guy in the head, but that's not my job either. I just let her know I'm there, and if you need me, until he goes away or, he calms down, and you let him back in the car. Fine. So I sat there for 5 minutes, and I don't know whether it was he knew I was there. He stormed off after a while, and then she drove away,
Yeah.
But, that's just what we do,
Yeah. I love the transformation from where I was to what I am today. As I went back to prison at 16 years clean, and I spent 8 years in prison. And off the top of my head, there's two guys there whose lives I saved, who'd been beaten really badly, and I gave mouth to mouth and CPR. And because when the squad turns up, I'm the one with blood all over me. I'm leaning, three actually, and I've got blood all over me. The squad runs in like they do the goons. I've got a really bad record. I end up in the solitary confinement. I end up in the DU while they do their investigation for saving someone's life. And whoever's kicked him in the head or jumped up and down on their head is sitting in his unit having dinner, and I'm locked in solitary confinement for a week while the police come in to investigate. And because I still live by a code of ethics that, especially in prison, it's like, mate, I just sent a guy unconscious. I went to help him. Who beat? I don't know. They just smile and you go, I don't know. All I know is that I was here trying to save someone's life, and but I was fully aware of the consequences that I would be locked up, but it didn't matter because there's something in us these days where we go out of our way to help, not to hurt. And it's a really, really, really nice gift that's been given to us. This empathy and compassion for another human being is so nice. But in the same time, if somebody come to hurt my children, my family, or me, I know that the arsehole still lives deep within, you know.
Mm.
And all you got to do is summons him, and you know, and he will come and play.
Mm.
He likes to play, you know. That's his.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I am so gifted to have yourself and the program that you've taught me, and you know, to be there, you know, like when I needed you all my life, you know. And I say all my life because you know it's been 40 years that I've known you basically, and you know, the last 36.5 years you've always just been a phone call away, and people don't understand that, you know, it is so important to have somebody that you can tell your secrets to.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and like I can count on one hand the amount of people that I know that I can ring at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, oh, I'm fucked. And they'll go, how can I help? You know, you're one of those people, Ron. But yeah, but that's such a gift because most people in this world don't even have that, you know.
Yeah, no, you know, I believe we're the lucky ones, you know, that thing called empathy and compassion was wonderful, you know. You have children, you have grandchildren, and then you have young children. So you forgot about the second step the same as I did.
Yeah, mate.
I'd like to blame you, but I think I went first. I can't remember.
You went first, mate.
You know what I mean? But yeah, but what a gift! What a gift to be a parent at our age to young children. Because I'm a better parent now.
Absolutely. You know, and I've been fortunate to parent over many years, 6 children, all in recovery. And so I can see that those kids, you know, like some, you know, the older ones are adults, like in their early 30s now, and they're living pretty good lives. They're not terribly scarred. You know, I'm not perfect, but they're not scarred with that added layer of having to deal with a parent in addiction. That's, you know, so, you know, because in addiction, we're totally self-absorbed, you know. We pay lip service to, oh, darling, you know, and I want to be a good parent, but we're just not capable. It just can't happen, you know. And so, you know, this gift, I think that's a great gift that at least, you know, I didn't have any children until I was in recovery. And although I'm not a perfect parent, but at least I haven't given my children that extra layer of baggage.
Yeah, look, you know, I know your children, you know, and I know they love you and respect you, and that's all we can do. You know, it sounds terrible, but I judge a person by their children. You know, if your children love, because your children know us better than anyone else does. You know, I've had turmoils with my children where they've had opinions, which they're allowed to have, but they should keep them to themselves. You know, they're like arseholes opinions. Everyone's got one, some of them stink. You know, and when I got with my younger wife, I had one of my daughters like, oh, you know, and now the funny part is her and my wife are the best mates. You know, they're so close it's not funny. You know, it's just fucking crazy. You know, I would never put money on that, but it's taken years and it's taken a lot of honesty and a lot of, okay, this is what's happening. And, you know, but, you know, I don't know why some of us get it. That's not relevant. But I do sometimes ponder. And I think that the fact that my last relapse, a beautiful young girl from they say middle class. She wasn't middle class. You know, they lived at Centennial Park. Her parents in one of those big mansions overlooking the park. You know, they came from big money. And she was 19 years of age and died while she was in active addiction with me, you know. And then I look at me, you know, and, you know, in my brain goes, oh, you scumbag, you've been a criminal, you've done this, you've done that. And I was given a chance to live, you know, and I've had a wonderful life. Even with the prison sentence, I still had a wonderful life. You know, while I was in prison, I tried to carry the message. And I believe people say, how did you stay clean? I say, I carried the message of addict, you know, of trying to help other people stay clean. And I believe that's why I'm still alive. I believe that's why my higher power kept me here. I really do. I believe, you know, despite myself, there was divine intervention. Despite yourself, there was divine interventions.
Well, absolutely. And I think, you know, money and possessions have really nothing to do with it. They're more of a hindrance. Like at the end of my addiction, I had all the money and drugs I wanted, you know. I was like that movie Scarface where I could just get shit-faced in a pile of white powder on a desk, you know. And so that wasn't it, you know. There's a young woman out there now that I know that I knew her when she was a newborn baby in the cot, and now she's 40 years old. Her parents are very wealthy, and they've spent over $2 million on her and every rehab from the United States and Australia and everything. But it's been more enabling than anything, and she's out there still. And I was saying to her uncle a couple of days ago, I don't know if she's going to make it. Like, she's either going to die or she's going to have to be like on totally, absolutely skid row, and before she'll surrender, because she's got the most strongest denial I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's so sad, I also know lots of people over the last 40 years that came from extremely wealthy families, and they were the hardest to get clean. The same as I say to people all the time, they think I'm stupid. I've never seen anyone too stupid to get clean. I've seen a lot of people who are too smart. The intellectual, philosophical bullshit, there's no place for it. This is a simple program.
Well, it's so simple. Like, there was that, famous artist that we both know that he was super intelligent, and you could have these wonderful conversations with him, but he was just he just intellectualized it too much,
philosophical bullshit, I call it. We can say his name. He's passed away, Brett. He was in so much pain. It used to be agonising to watch him, to watch the demon. The demon that was inside him was fucking painful, Yeah,
his face was always contorted with the pain. Yeah.
And he was financially,
Yeah.
I have a friend now who's got, hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I try to talk to him about recovery, he just fucking, he hasn't got a problem.
No.
Because he just goes to another country.
Yeah.
Gets another girl and goes to another country. And, and it's quite sad when I see how bankrupt he is. You've heard my old saying, I know people are so poor, all they've got is money.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I like material things, but they don't govern my feelings or my life.
No, and they don't, nothing quenches that compulsion and that desire. Nothing quenches it, except
I can drive to a meeting in a Mitsubishi Magna or in a fucking Mercedes. I still get to the meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
I still, I'm still grateful that I've got a car that I'm driving, because in the end of my using, there was no car. I sold that on the Sunday to get on in one of my brain waves that I'll sell the car and I'll buy an ounce and I'll make it into deals and I'll fucking get the car back and I'll buy another car and, I don't know about you, but I became my own best customer in the end. I didn't even want to sell anymore. I didn't even want to sell anymore because I wanted it for myself, because there was never enough.
It's never enough. And look, the other thing I've learnt too is over these years, when we talk about trying to quell that desire and that compulsion, is drug replacement programs. And when I was about 10 years clean, I was on the board of directors of one of the main rehabs in New South Wales, and we had a meeting with the health department, and those days they had this thing called DODO, Directorate of the Drug Authority. Drug initiative or something, and this guy, he was just a public servant, and he said, we were talking, and he just said methadone's the answer, and he was tapping his desk, and then I realised through our conversation what he meant was it costs $7 a day to put someone on methadone or any of these other new replacement drugs, and it's just a social control. What he was saying was the addict has to come to the government to get their drugs every day. So first of all, they know where you are every day.
Yep.
And you're going to them for your drugs, and it's socially acceptable to give something besides your drug of choice. So, pharmaceutical. And so it wasn't a treatment at all, and they didn't intend it that way. It was a social control on drug addicts, It
was control.
Yeah.
And it was also cost efficient.
Yeah.
And they didn't care. They didn't care about what the harm, as we both know, the methadone is a fucking horrific drug. They didn't care about the casualty.
No.
It was all about numbers. It was all about the financial numbers. The price of methadone to compared to the price of housing someone in prison. $800 a day to hold someone in prison, or $7 a day to put him on dome. To me, that's one of the biggest myths that they've ever told, one of the biggest lies they've ever told. This will help you. It will not help you. It doesn't help you. We know it doesn't help you. And it doesn't achieve anything but stops the crime rate.
Yeah.
And that's all they cared about. They stopped the crime rate for a small period of time, because then they got on the ice.
Yeah.
On top of the dome, or speed on top of the dome, or Mandrax, or we got all this new stuff now, stuff that old people don't even know about, Xanax and
right.
Yeah,
but it's all new, but it's the same, same thing.
Just changed the name from Mandy's to Sodium Seconol to Valium to Rohypnol. Like it's all the same olds, and then just your arsehole's on the ground and you're fucking bankrupt again, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
But the good part is, mate, just for the day, we don't have to use.
Yeah, and
that's all we can do, just for the day.
We don't even know have to know the names of all these new.
No, I laugh. I work with some young kids, and they're talking about bricks. I'm learning all this new lingo now. Bricks. Bricks is Xanax, and half a brick, and then we go to the trap house, and I'm like, what the fuck's the trap house? They go, it's an old guy, and he lets you use his house. So you go to the pedophile's house. And he starts laughing. He goes, I guess you're right. I said, if you take enough Xanax and you wake up a sore ass, the pedophile had his way. And the young guy I treat, he laughs his head off. He goes, yeah, you got a really funny way of saying stuff, Ron. I said, but is it the truth? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, that's what we're after. All we're after is the truth.
Mate, in my day, a brick weighed 333 grams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. 333 grams was 3 bricks to a kilo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it was, but the world's changed, mate, and I'm really, really, in some ways, I'm really sad about what's happening with our youth. But at the same time, we've got an opportunity now through this social media, and that's why we're doing this podcast, to try to get to more people, because it's where we have to go there, because that's what the kids are doing.
Yeah.
The kids are all listening to podcasts, they're social media, and they're doing this, they're doing that. And that's my motivation for running this company, is to try to get the word out that you can recover. You don't have to live a life of degradation and dereliction. You don't have to, completely lose your family, your friends, and, all that good stuff. You don't have to end up on the street with your backside in the air, like there is a way out, and one day at a time. You've found it for over 40 years. If you can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, and I think, I did it back in those days. I didn't think I had a choice, but I did. And, anyone listening, you have a choice and you can choose. And
and today there's a lot more out, and there's a lot more available than there was when we came around.
Yeah.
There's so much more information. There's so much more programs. There's so much more fucking, people prepared and willing to help.
Yeah.
So anyone who's listening to this podcast, I hope that you get something out of it, and I hope that it triggers some sort of reaction inside your body and in your mind, and that you can, seek help, and you can get freedom from active addiction one day at a time. Mario, really thank you very much for coming on, mate, and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us.
It was a pleasure, Ron.
You've always been a gentleman to me. You're part of the family. You are a very good human being that helps a lot of people and has helped a lot of people over the past. And I call you a friend, and I think, I'm extremely lucky to have found you, mate. So thank you very much, brother.
Thanks, mate. And same to you. Like, you're a good friend. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.